Hey, it's Ashley and I'm back with another haircut tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to do a men's haircut step by step. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. First, you should brush out your client's hair and check for anything on the scalp. After doing that, using my comb, I am going in with a number 3 and debulking. I am now going in and lightly scooping out so that I can get a nice start to my fade. When you go behind the ear, you can use the corner of your clippers, keeping the bottom edge flat and letting the other side of your clippers plane off of the head. This is like using a 45-degree angle with your shears. Then I am going to the back of the head and I am using that comb to help scoop the hair into my clippers. This helps you keep a steady, stable line around the head for where you are going. Going back in with that number 3, I am going to make sure I get any stragglers that are left over. After removing the stragglers, I am going to start my taper. Going in with a number 1, I'm going to start from the sideburns. Lightly going in and starting to scoop as I get to the top of the ear, opening my clippers, and then continuing that motion about 1/2 inch above. Now moving on to the back of the neck, there is some calyx back here, so I am going to turn my clippers sideways to make sure I'm cutting the hair in the direction of the hair growth. Then I'm going to go back and do a scooping motion so that I can get a light taper started. So once debulking with that number 1, I'm going to open those clippers and go back around. Going in with my 1.5 guard, I'm going to lightly scoop around the hair that I've already cut with that number 1 to slowly taper it in. Doing the same steps on the other side. Then taking my 1.5 and opening it and going 1/2 inch above where I have that line set. So now I am fading up into my number 3 that I've already cut. So I am taking that to the other side, closing and opening that 1.5 to give me a nice little fade. And just going back in and making sure everything scoops out very well. And then repeating on the other side. Taking a 2 guard and just lightly tapping everything into that 3. When you get to the occipital bone in the back, you can almost start to kind of meet into where that 2.5 would be used, but you can always go back and open that 2.5 just to double check your blend into your 3. And then I'm going to lightly just take that 2.5 and kind of bring it up and over the ear just a little bit with that corner. Now the next step is going to be pretty important. I'm going to start to line my client up. I've done all of my dry work with my clippers, and so now I want to move on to doing the lineup. I'm going to start at the edge of the hairline, slowly creating a C-shaped pattern into the client's already natural hairline. I really don't want to do anything excessive on the hairline unless they ask me to. Then I'm going to go around the ears using the bottom 3 teeth of my clippers to slowly work my way into another C shape. This way I am taking my time and slowly going over the ear to make sure I don't miss anything. For the back of the neck, I normally start where the ear naturally starts to taper off after I already have my C shape. And then I slowly glide my trimmers all the way down the neck of the client, cleaning up any extra hair on the neck. And then after, I like to take the back of my comb and use this to slightly taper the client's hairline into the haircut. Look how beautiful that comes out. And then I just go back over my line to make sure everything's nice and crisp. And after that, I've already tapered this client's neck. So I will just slowly take my clippers and blend in to what I've already tapered. And then I like to go kind of pulling everything up so that it's never going into the client's shirt. It's always coming out. And then I go back and I start in the middle and just kind of make this clean line up, even though there's really no line because I've tapered it out. And then I'm going to repeat the same steps on the other side. Now we're going to do some scissor work. Whenever I blend in my haircuts, I do not blend clipper over comb. I prefer to use my shear over comb. So I'm going to start by wetting the client's hair down, and this is in real time because I really did need to put that much water, and you can see the ends are still not all the way wet, but I did wet the root of the hair so that I can work that water all the way towards the ends, and you can see. And now I'm going to pull it back just to make sure all of that water is worked in. So I am going to start by blending in my side. The client is only doing a trim on top, so there is no need to go straight for the top right away. I am going to start by sectioning out this corner of the client's head. So I am really working on the parietal ridge of my client, and I want to take some of this hair from the crown because it will come into effect later in blending. And so now, starting at the corner, I'm going to blend from that number 3 that we've already taken down into the top, slowly fading to a 45-degree angle with my scissor over comb. And when you start to get into the longer hair, you can go ahead and start using your fingers to slowly pull out at a 45-degree angle to get a really nice blend from that number 3 into the top without taking out a lot of length for your client. So, and I'm just going to slowly work this back with my guide, giving me a lot more length going towards the front bang area. So now that I have that cut already, I can go with my comb and work parallel on the head by slowly bringing the hair up, planing straight off of the head, and cutting towards my already cut guide on my sides. Now going in and just doing a little bit more of a detailed blend, I'm just taking a little more weight out of the corners of this haircut. And so once you have all of that blended, you can move on to the cowlick. I'm going to pull out at a 45-degree angle. I did drop. Whenever I cut the back of the hair with the number 3, I did give a little drop at the crown so that I could take in this cowlick. So using my fingers, I am cutting at a 45-degree angle from the parietal ridge to the crown of the head. I'm trying to make up for the dent or the flatness of the back of the head to the crown so that it looks more rounded and fuller. Because if I were to take that 3 all the way up, he would not have any weight or volume in this area. So now I'm just going to work my guide to the other side of the head. And you can see when I'm pulling up where my fingers start to pop that hair out, I want to cut because that means my 3 is falling out of my fingers. So now just going in and getting any extra heavy weight that might have fallen on top that I didn't cut all the way. And cross-checking my cut afterwards by parallel cutting. So I am just going to slowly ride the comb up the client's head and give the pretend illusion that it is not flat here. You can see that my comb is not touching his head because I would be taking off too much hair from this area. And the cowlick should sit perfectly when brushed the right way. And then I'm just going to give a little more detail where the occipital bone sits and starts to kind of plane off into the back of the head. And then I'm going to now start pulling some of that length from the crown up and working it at these angles from what I've already blended in. So I am pulling it out and just going at that 45-degree angle and kind of just lightening up some of this weight on top so that when I push it forward, there's no really heavy lines kind of sitting in the curls. And then I always like to keep brushing it back just so I can double check where the cowlick is sitting at so that I'm not overcutting it. Now that I've got my sides blended in, I am going to take out some of the length of my bangs. So I'm taking about 1 inch off of his bangs. He really wants it to sit right above his eyebrows, kind of at his eyebrows. So I am going to go 1 inch to 2 inches below his eyebrows because this client has super curly hair and we don't want it to pop up and look really high on his forehead because we didn't take in consideration when his hair was wet that it was curly. So I am going really far below his eyebrows where he originally wants it to sit when it's dry so that we have a lot of extra room. Now I'm going to take my middle section out. My length that I'm going to follow is going to come from my bangs. I've already cut my bangs. My bangs are my guide. Now, pulling this up and kind of taking out some of a section because we want to work this top part of the head first, I am going to go ahead and point cut into his curly hair. I do not want a perfect cut because he has curls. We want some texture. And then we're not taking a lot of length off. So when I get back here, we're not going to be taking as much because we have a cowlick and we only trimmed off a little on the bangs. So we should get to the point where we start to meet our cowlick because we've already previously cut it all the length back here to blend into the sides. So my middle section is completely finished. I can now move on and start another section using my bangs once again as my guide, and I'm going to work towards the back of the head. So taking a small section and grabbing it up. Now I'm going to point cut into it, making sure I can see my guide from what I previously cut it in the middle. And then lightly point cutting into that length that needs to be removed. So I'm going to continue moving throughout the top of the head in these mohawk sections. And I'm going to continue to just point cut all of that length out. So everything should start to meet towards the cowlick. So I should not be recutting that. Once I get to where the occipital bone and the crown of the head meet, I'm going to cut more towards an angle. I'm cutting at this angle because there is a slight dent in the head here. Naturally, everyone has one, but if I take out too much weight here, you will be able to see it whenever the curls dry. So we want to keep length in this area. And then I'm going to double check when I pull everything to one side of the bangs that there's no heavy corners. And you can see that heavy corner sitting there, and I'm going to cut it lightly. I'm not taking out the corner at the top. I am just meeting them together. And once you've done that, you can just make sure that everything blends perfectly. And this entire side of the head is completely cut. I don't need to go back. I don't need to double check. I may cross check it. And I show the client, is this length good? Is this texture good? I've cut one side. I'm not about to recut everything, so let me know now. So now I'm going to go to my other side, taking a mohawk section, starting with the bangs as my guide. I'm going to work towards the back of the head, and I'm going to lightly point cut into it. I'm going to move towards my cowlick, where I should start to meet up with my previously cut guide. I can then go in and take another small mohawk section, working my way to the other side of the head, and going towards the back to meet with what I've previously cut. Now I can take this up at an angle and go ahead and cut that corner of weight out to complete the blend of this haircut. Once we do that, I'm going to pull a little bit more length so that I can make sure all of the weight is completely cut and blended in. I'm blending everything in to what I've previously already cut and blended to that number 3. And then here I am double checking this corner when I pull everything towards the side of the face on the bangs. Once I do that, I go in and I double check every area. After double checking, I'm going to wash the client and recape them so that if I need to cut anything that I see, they're already covered. I don't have to worry about it. I'm going to finish towel drying his hair to get some of that moisture out. And then going back in and double checking everything once it's washed while it's wet, so that if I need to scissor cut anything, I can really see it well. Making sure all the texture looks nice, the curls are sitting well. And then I'm going to blow dry the sides and a little bit of the top. I'm not going to give him a complete dried blow dry because he has curly hair and I wouldn't want to make it too fluffy. But I am going to blow out the sides so that I can see my fade. And it should stay a little bit straighter since it's so short. After checking the sides and drying it up, I'm going to lightly scrunch and dry the hair, get some of that water out. And while I'm doing this, I'm just checking everything's blended, everything looks good, the weight's sitting well, the cowlick's sitting well, the client's happy with it. And I'm going to put a little bit of paste in his hair to give him some weight so that the humidity doesn't really take it over. If you stayed this long, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out my before and after. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much.